What's up, everyone out there? It's your boy Ceddy, Ceddy Knows Tech, and today we're going to talk about your next desktop or laptop purchase. I get asked this question a lot lately around this time when kids are back in school and young adults are going off to college, and the holiday season is now, in full effect here. So I get asked, "Hey, Ceddy, I need to buy a new laptop or desktop computer for myself or my child or my young adult heading off to college and so forth. What should I get? And for the best bang for buck, and it covers the use cases that I need for my computer." I got you. So we're going to present some machines and kind of different configurations of things that you should take into consideration when thinking about your next desktop or laptop purchase. Everything on this particular video is computers and devices that I have used personally and that I have personally to talk about. So there's not going to be no regurgitation information. It's not going to be like, theoretical stuff that should be. These are my personal opinions from experiences that I have had with these devices. So kind of sit back and relax, and as I present I guess you call it the Ceddy's guide to your next laptop purchase. But before we get into any of that, you know what time it is. Cue my intro. So let's talk about the iPad. I get a lot of questions from people asking, can the iPad be their only device that they use? And as I said in one of my earlier videos, I think I actually talked about this in my first video for this channel, that an iPad can be used as your only device or your only computer. It just depends on what you're using your computer for. And the apps. Are the apps available for the iPad for the things that you need to do? I have an iPad Pro, the 2020 version. It is probably one of my most used devices, period, just because I carry it with me everywhere. But I cannot use an iPad only for the things I do. I'm a software developer, a software architect, so I do a lot of coding and design. And at this point in time, at least as of right now, I can't do those things on an iPad, so an iPad wouldn't work for me as my only device. But can it work for you? That really depends on what you are using your computer for, and things like that. If the iPad does have a lot of apps that work with the iPad and so forth, such as the Office Suite, the Google Suite, even some design applications for artists and sketchers and things like that. So if the apps are there that you need, and doesn't really create no compromises for your workflows, then an iPad might be a viable option for you. For a lot of people, it's more of a companion device to their main machine, and that's kind of what I put the iPad at. Even though it's a important device to me, it's more of a companion device to my MacBook and my Windows machines, because I just can't do everything I need with it as of today. Will that change? Of course it can, when Apple kind of opens up the ecosystem a lot more to more professional level apps, especially for developers, then they can fit my use case. But I know my use case is more particular than most people's use cases. So I would say that with the iPad, yes, I would say it can work for you, only if the applications that you need are there. Another thing I would say for students and college students and stuff, I wouldn't recommend the iPad be your only device. And the reason why, because when you talk about schools and universities and things of that nature, depending on your major and things like that, especially if you're coming from an engineering background and an engineering major like myself, there's particular pieces of software that you will have to run that just is not available for the iPad. And that will become almost a stop right there. I can't use it because I just can't run the software that I need on my iPad as a student. So while I think it's great for like note taking and things like that, and maybe you can carry with you to class instead of taking your main computer, I don't think that is a good thinking or a thing that you should do as a student or whether you're in college or you're just in high school or something like that, to use that as your main device, just because you might have other pieces of software that's not on the iPad yet that you have to run on your machine. But the iPad is a viable machine. I like it a lot. If you open up the Apple website here, you will see that the iPad comes in a variety of configurations and kind of, just kind of setups and so forth. I would say if you're serious about the iPad, if you're seriously looking at the iPad as a replacement for your desktop and laptop computer, while the iPad mini and the iPad is nice, I would start thinking about, from an intro level, going with the iPad Air. And the reason why I say that is, as you kind of see here, is that Apple just released these new iPads, the new iPad Airs, and as at the time of this recording, it's going to be available in October. These new iPad Airs, and they're kind of like the iPad Pros in a sense, where the way they've been set up and designed. I passed it. In particular, the new A14 Bionic processor. That's going to be a very strong processor for your iPad and so forth. So you can probably do a lot with this particular machine. It is compatible with the next generation Apple Pencil and the new Magic Keyboard. And that's basically the configuration I have for my iPad Pro. I'm not going to get the iPad Air because I have a stronger version of the iPad, which is the iPad Pro. With the Magic Keyboard and with the mouse and everything, and that works awesome. I can't tell you how many times I have, sat in front of my iPad working for hours on end, and it feels just like you're sitting in front of a computer. Like I said, again, if the apps that you're needing to use is available for it, then it's a great option. So the iPad Air is what I would start. It comes in multiple colors and so forth. That's coming up. It's got that fast millisecond pen latency from the new Apple Pencil 2. Not the version 1 pencil, but the version 2 pencil. It's faster with graphics and editing videos in your notebooks, and it is a great device to have, period. You can't go wrong with the iPad, at least to some capacity, whether you're using it for your main machine or using it as a companion machine. The iPad period is great. Like I said, if you were thinking seriously about it, I would at least start with the iPad Air and look at it from that standpoint. Look at the pricing of it. We can see here that it comes in these colors here, so you can just pick a color. My favorite color is blue, so I wouldn't go with the 64 gig version. That's just not enough space. By the time you get the operating system on there, get some updates on there, and then you start putting on apps, you can quickly eat up that space in no time. And you would not have a lot of room on there for documents and pictures and so forth and videos and stuff. If you were, and I get it, budget is a major thing. Not everybody has all this excess money to be dumping into these machines. So let's just say that a 64 gig version is, that's my price point. That's what I have. You know what? I ain't mad at you. I get it. If you are going to have to go with the 64 gig version, okay. But I would make sure that you have enough iCloud space to kind of store your stuff in, so that you can, you can still use it and store your documents and pictures and things like that. I would personally go with the 256 gig version. Those are the only configurations that they have for the iPad Air, at least of right now. The 64 and the 128. The 64 and the 256 gig versions for storage. Most people can get by with the Wi-Fi only. Or if you're like me and you don't want to necessarily be tethered to just Wi-Fi, if you just want to be out and about and still have internet connectivity, you can do it one of two ways. You can get the cellular version that hooks onto like your AT&T, Verizon networks and so forth, or you can get the Wi-Fi version and just kind of tether it to your phone. The only downside is if you tether it to your phone, then you can run the battery on your phone down faster, because it's doing now another big task, which is kind of, providing internet access to a device. So that's the reason why I usually go with the cellular version, just because, I don't have to worry about that tethering, tethering things to my laptop. My phone. And this is why I kind of conserve the battery on my phone while I still have, reliable internet connectivity to my iPad. So for the Wi-Fi version, for the 256 version, it starts at what is it, $749. You can get the Apple Care. The Apple Care is actually pretty good on here. $69. I do recommend getting Apple Care for these devices because, you know, $750 is no small change. And if something happened, you crack the screen or something, you just take it to Apple. I'll call Apple up, tell them what happened, and they will replace it or fix it for you, replace the screen for you. And I think it's a small deductible that you will have to pay for out of pocket, but it's not $750. If you're going with the what's it, 256 gig version, what is that going to cost you? I mean, you got the $749 is for the $749 is for the Wi-Fi only, I should say. 256 gigs, Wi-Fi only. If you're gonna go with the cellular version, it's $879. So it does go a little bit. It does get a little bit more expensive. But if you're needing, like I said, if you need the internet connected to the device and have kind of reliable connection there, to me it's worth it. That's an opinion of mine. To me, it's worth it. I get that everybody's not, you know, they don't believe that. They believe that I can just tether it to my phone and do the same thing, which you're 100% correct. It's the same price for the Apple Care Plus. Apple Care Plus, so I definitely say get that, and so forth. If you're looking for an iPad with a little bit more power in it, then you can look at the iPad Pro. The iPad Pro is basically, it's like the iPad Air. Now it is like the iPad Air because the Air kind of took the design of the Pro. It's just that it's a little bit more powerful in the sense of RAM. Even though we don't know quite how much RAM is going to come with the iPad Air, but I can probably tell you it's not going to be 6 gigs of RAM. It's going to probably be 4 gigs of RAM. So this one you will have, you know, a little bit more power and things like that, so you can do more things. But as far as what you can use it for, the Pencil, the Pencil 2 and all that kind of stuff, that is the same across the board. It is a great device. I will also tell you, if you're going to do it, get it with the I would say get it with the Magic Keyboard, and that's this right here. The Magic Keyboard is it's like a floating design keyboard for your iPad, your iPad Pro, and your and the iPad Air that's coming out in October. I don't believe the iPad itself have that. I know they have the smart keyboards and so forth, but if you're going to get a keyboard, I know it's a little expensive, but this the Magic Keyboard they have here is really nice. It's really nice. It gives you the you know, you just kind of connect your iPad directly to this floating hinge right here, which hooks onto the back. There's some pins on the back that it connects onto that pairs the iPad with the keyboard, and you don't have to worry about Bluetooth or anything like that. It just works really flawlessly and really quickly. It has full support of the kind of Magic trackpad and all the gestures that come along with the trackpad that you would have on your MacBook, on your standard MacBook. You will now have that on your iPad as well. Depending on, like I said, they also have a smart keyboard if you're not willing to pay the for the iPad Pro. It's I think like $399 and $499. I mean, was it $299 and $399? Yeah, $299 for the $299 for the 11-inch iPad. Yeah, the 11-inch iPad Pro is $299. I think it's like $100 more, something like that. I bought it back in May, so I can't remember the exact price of it. But it is more expensive than your smart keyboard. But your smart keyboard doesn't have that floating design, and nor does it have the trackpad for you to use. So if you're wanting to use that, I would definitely pick up a keyboard if you try to make it a laptop replacement. And the only thing I would say about that is the printer. A lot of people ask about the printer and printing from the iPad. That's completely not possible. You just want to make sure that your printer is relatively newer, within at least probably the last about 4 or 5 years or so, and that the printer has what is called mobile printing. A lot of the printers now just have it built in. It's kind of standard now, and a lot of printers now. You just want to make sure that your printer has mobile printing so that it can print from a device like an iPad or iPhone or a Chromebook and things like that. So that's be the biggest things I would say for the iPad. Can it be used? Yes. Just kind of really take a hard look at what you need it for. If you're doing just basic things such as, you know, surfing the internet, YouTube, Netflix, streaming video, Even using Office Suite, there is a version of Office that comes with the iPad, and I can kind of just show you this real quick here because I have it on mine. Actually, this is my MacBook. I use my iPad so much, sometimes I forget that I'm actually on my MacBook when I'm working because my iPad works. It works that well. You just kind of forget sometimes that you're on a computer because the iPad is at that level now of doing things that I would use my computer for. So just like then, I'm thinking I'm on my iPad when I'm actually on my MacBook. My iPad for me does about 90 to 95% of the things I need to do every day. I just get on my iPad and do it. Like I said, it's when I really get into those kind of things I do for work or how I make my living, which is coding and designing. The iPad is not there yet, and it's not that it's not powerful enough. The applications and Apple just kind of being like, them phasing in these things slowly, kind of prevents that from happening right now. There are workarounds that I've shown in my prior video where I can use my iPad for coding and so forth. But if you just talk about native on the device development and stuff like that, I can't do that at this moment. But I kind of regress on that. But the iPad can be used. I love it. I'm sure a lot of you will love it as well. So that's basically my take on the iPad and and its features and things that it can do. So let's go ahead and talk about the Chromebooks. I get a lot of questions about that. So next up, we're going to talk about Chromebooks. So next up, we're going to talk about Chromebooks and my thoughts about them for your use cases and some kind of viable options that you should be looking for when considering a Chromebook for your next laptop. So if you go out to Google, or I should say the Google for the Chromebook, you will probably see something about Chrome OS and the Chromebooks and so forth. So I get a lot of people ask me, just first off, what is a Chromebook and what is this Chrome OS thing that you're talking about? Basically, some years back, Google said, you know what, let's build a computer that can operate and, be lighter weight and things of that nature, but be strong enough to kind of do everyday productivity tasks using a more lightweight operating system. And the operating system is just a system that's on your computer that basically tells your computer how to operate. Some of the more famous operating systems is like Windows 10, Mac OS, iOS, Android. So that's what an operating system is. So basically, Google built its own kind of laptop, and it's geared more for getting things done, using the cloud and things like that. Now, do you have to be connected to the internet at all times to use it? No, you can actually be disconnected from the internet and still use your Chromebook for different things, such as that, different things like documents and things like that. It works, of course, better once you connect it back to the cloud because all the services that Google offers, for instance, can kind of go through the system and so forth. What makes the Chromebook or Chrome OS very appealing also is that on top of just Chrome OS, developers, for one thing, like myself, we can now develop on the Chromebook because now the Chrome OS team has created what is called, it was already Linux, so they have given us developers access to that Linux part of the computer for development. So what does that mean? That we can actually install Linux applications on our Chromebooks and use them for development, so things such as Visual Studio Code, Node.js, and things like that. We can now do that completely now on a Chromebook with no problem. Now, I know that's a very particular use case, and most people who are watching this video are not developers, and that has nothing to do with them. But this kind of I'm just saying that because this kind of puts the Chromebook at a little better position, in my opinion, than the iPad, because the iPad, I can't do that natively yet, whereas with a Chromebook, you can. So that's that. Also, Chrome OS now also allows Android applications to be installed directly on the Chromebook. So all your favorite Android apps, Facebook, Netflix, games, and such as that, the things that you played on your phone, you can actually install those same applications on your Chromebook and use them. So Chrome, so it's almost like there's three operating systems kind of running, are allowed to be ran at the same time on your Chromebook. You have Chrome OS, which just comes with the Chromebook. You have Android that allows you to kind of install Android apps and games and such from the Play Store directly on your device so you can use them. And it has the ability to install Linux apps, which I know that's why a smaller subgroup of people who's looking for that. But sorry about that. But it allows that kind of functionality to take place. So basically, your Chromebook is basically like a lightweight laptop that allows you to, use it using a more lighter weight operating system to kind of get things done. And the Chromebook itself got really popular with schools and elementary, middle school, high schools, even colleges, just because it was able to do a lot of the things that these schools were using. A lot of systems and the software that the schools were using in the cloud was able to be pulled right up on their Chromebooks, such as Google Classroom, Zoom, Meetings to Go, and all that kind of different things that they had that they use in schools. They was actually able to run it directly on the Chromebook with no problem. So Chrome OS kind of exploded on the scene with that, and a lot of people are now buying Chromebooks and so forth because of that. So one of the first questions I get, can the Chromebook work for me? And just like I'm gonna give you the same answer that I kind of gave with my iPad, is that yes, it can work for you, but it depends on if those apps are available for the Chromebook or Chrome OS, I should say, are either Android, Chrome OS, or for Linux. For instance, I can use the Chromebook for development. I can use the Chromebook for developing a lot of mobile apps like Android apps and so forth. So a Chromebook is more, compared to the iPad, it does a lot more for me. I still like my iPad more just because I have the the fortune of having a MacBook that's really lightweight and so forth. So while I do have a Chromebook, a Pixelbook Go, if I do want to do my development, I can do my MacBook, so I can still have my iPad. But if this is going to be your only device, then if I had to have one device that kind of did it all, and I want to kind of be mobile, like my iPad or my Chromebook, I would probably go with the Chromebook just because I have the ability to develop on the Chromebook as well. So the Chromebooks, as far as feature rich, is a little bit more feature rich than your iPad. And I know that's debatable. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that and put stuff in the comments like, that's not true. This is my opinion on things from using all these different systems. But the Chrome OS system is actually very, very well put together and it works well. The only downside to the Chromebooks is that because it's a lighter weight operating system and a lot of things are kind of expected to be done in the cloud, the storage and memory and all that kind of stuff that you will get with your traditional laptops and stuff, it's just not there. So, and it really doesn't need to be there because of what the Chromebook represents and the way it's supposed to be used. But I will say that you do get what you kind of pay for with that. So a kind of rule of thumb, if you get a Chromebook, you want to get at least 64 gigs of space on it. I would recommend at least 120, but I do know about budget and all that, so I would say at least 64 gigs of storage and at least 4 gigs of RAM. I would prefer 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. Just for that's for longevity, but you do have different things you can install on it now with Android apps and Linux apps, so you do want to have that, more stuff that you can do. But Chrome OS, though, just kind of showing you here, it's a really good system. It's a really good operating system. One of the big pieces of this is, unlike Windows, which drives me crazy, is that Windows had these huge updates all the freaking time that over time actually slows down the computer at times unless you're really well at maintaining what's being installed and kind of keeping things in tune. It's gotten better since the old days, but it still drives me crazy that. And I know you can kind of turn them off and turn them on, but most people don't know about these things. So I'm speaking from a point of most people. Most people don't know that you can do all these things with a Windows laptop. So all of a sudden they'd be working. All of a sudden it says, I gotta restart because I just did a reboot or I just did an update. And you're like, I'm in the middle of working. I can't do all these reboots and stuff. And I get it, Windows. There's a lot going on with that system, and I know they're working on refining that some, so I'm not gonna beat them up too bad about that. But the cool thing about the Chromebooks is that Sometimes you go forever and not even know that it's updating. About every 6 weeks or so, every 6 to 8 weeks, Google will push out an update for Chrome OS, and your laptop will kind of automatically, for the most part, either automatically update or kind of let you know, hey, there's an update. Whenever you're ready, you can update me. And it's a real quick update. Usually they're smaller in size. So it don't take hours sometimes to kind of get your Chromebook updated. Maybe 5 minutes for the most part. So the Chromebook doesn't really outgrow itself. My son's 7. He's in second grade. He's had the Samsung Chromebook for about 2.5 years now, maybe 3 years. It runs just as fast today as it ran the day that we got it. And then the reason why is because it's the design of the operating system and what is in its intended use. It's not meant to be playing AAA titles and all that kind of stuff. While you can play games through an Android store, and they work for the most part very well, there's enough resource there to handle that, so that things will continue to run very well. So upgrading it just kind of happens. Sometimes it just kind of happens on its own. So it's really easy to upgrade. A lot of my touch screen, they have long battery life. For the most Chromebooks, it says 12 hours. Give or take what they usually take from that. Usually get about, for the most part, depending on which one you get, about 10 hours, about battery life, just depending on what you're doing. Like I said, you can use it offline. Most of them are touchscreen. Tethering, it can hook onto your phone's Wi-Fi, your house Wi-Fi. I'm sure there are some that connects to like through LTE with Verizon and stuff. I don't have that one. I just have a Pixelbook Go. And a lot of them are very smaller in nature. They're kind of small, between 11 inches and about 15 inches. So they're portable and they're lightweight for the most part. They got built-in security with Google and so forth. So, I'm not saying you can't get a virus, because if it's on the internet, you can get a virus. But a lot of viruses don't target the systems like that because of the scrutiny that the operating system put everything through just to kind of run on that device. So, Google keeps your Chromebook updated with sandboxing and things to that, and security chips and built-in antiviruses. You can run different family profiles on it, so you can have mama's account or mom's settings, dad's settings, brother, sister settings, and all that kind of stuff. So you can run that. It's instant on. It's almost like your phone. So as soon as you touch your phone, it turns on. Same kind of concept for the Chromebook. So there's not this huge reboot and all that kind of stuff. And you can kind of go through this and kind of see, what makes a Chromebook a great option for yourself and things like that. Like I said, now if you have professional software that you need to run your day-to-day job or your things like that, then a Chromebook is probably not going to be need for you. You're going to have to probably go into one of the major operating systems like a Windows machine or a Mac machine. But if you're doing like everyday tasks and you, especially if you work inside the Google ecosystem of suites like Google Docs and Sheets and that kind of thing, the Chromebook is kind of built for you, because that was the mindset that Google had in mind when they actually built these devices. Kind of target these people that's in the cloud all the time, and a lot of things they're working with is in the cloud, because like it or not, application development and application delivery is changing in the software development landscape. Back, I remember being young and buying software that ran completely from a CD, so you had to put the CD in the CD drive and you run it from there. Those days are gone, of course. Now it's like you download all the software and run it from your computer. And while that's still the kind of the standard right now, what's quickly happening is that a lot of companies are saying, I don't even need you to download anything. You just run it from the cloud and use it from there. And we're talking about some serious major software. There's like Figma, for instance. If you're a designer, graphic design and things like that, you can actually run your graphic software from that service. And I use it every day, and it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. So a lot of companies kind of move to the subscription model where you kind of run things from the cloud. I'm not going to get into if you like that or not, but that's kind of where things are going. So Chrome OS, I definitely say it's in a better position than an iPad if you're talking about a computer for yourself or your child for school or your young adult for college. A lot of the software they use at these schools fit right into the Chrome OS system with no problems, and they run good. But like I said, you will pay for what you will get what you pay for. So if you're going to buy a Chromebook, you should spend thousands of dollars on a Chromebook. Honestly, I would probably say if you're spending more than $800 on a Chromebook, unless there's a reason that you're buying that super high end, like Chromebook, and if like a Pixelbook go to one I have is an example of that. It's a really nice Chromebook, and it's the one I'm gonna show you all. But I would say don't spend more than $1,000 on a Chromebook unless you absolutely have to, because things are not running like a traditional computer. You're not. A lot of times you're downloading lower power games and things of that nature on your. That's my dog barking. On your Chromebook, so you don't need all that high end software on the Chromebook to kind of run, so you don't need all that resource. So I have the Pixelbook Go, which is again a Chromebook from Google. This is one of their flagship devices for the Chromebook. And they got them in different colors, and they're easy enough, they're portable enough and lightweight enough to kind of carry around. They start about $649, as you can see right here. They do go up depending on how much storage and things like that you're looking for. It is quick charging if you use the charger, this USB-C charger. It is quick charging. You can get like I said right here, this is amazing. You get 22 hours of battery life use in just 20 minutes of charge. So if you try to quickly kind of top off your laptop or get it, I need my laptop charged, I need some power on my laptop. 20 minutes in, you got another 2 hours of battery life automatically. But all the cool features of a Chromebook, how fast it is, how fast it starts, and all that kind of stuff, you have it here, and this can be used for a lot of people. For instance, my wife is an attorney, so she does have a Windows machine for a lot of the legal software that she runs with the firm and all that kind of stuff. But when she's not on that Windows laptop doing some things, she's on her Chromebook. She has a Dell Chromebook, which is another good brand. And it has 8 gigs of RAM and 120 gigs of space. And when she's not really doing her legal software or utilizing her legal software and doing other things like researching and all that kind of stuff, she does it from a Chromebook because it's faster. It's faster and it works well. And you can kind of see here, like I said, it's got from your Play Store, you can download a lot of your favorite apps and so forth. So, and you can look at some of the tech specs here. Let's look at some of the technical specs. It has, this particular Chromebook Go is a 13.3 inch laptop. You can kind of see the dimensions right here. They have different processors. Like I said, as you kind of go up, like into the i7, you going up to $1,300. But you get 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, a 4K display, and things like that. So if you was talking about a regular machine, that's easily a $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 machine you're getting for $1,300. But unless you absolutely need this, and like this computer would be more if you want the Chromebook for development. I don't even have that one because I got a MacBook. But if you're looking for a Chromebook for development, that might be a good price between these two right here. For the most people, I would say between the M3 and the i5. If I had to say, if you had the $849 to get the i5, I say get the i5. The M3 is an Intel processor. It runs great, but it's not as strong as the i5. If you're serious about a Chromebook and you want some longer longevity in it, I would say definitely go with the this model right here for $849. And the reason why is basically between the processor, this being an i5 and that's being an M3. So that's your stronger processor. And also, they both come with 8 gigs of RAM, so that's fine. And they both have full HD displays, so that's great. It's this right here, the 64 gigs versus the 128 gigs of storage. Like I said, by the time you start adding on apps and things of that nature on your computer, that's any computer, you can quickly eat up 64 gigs of RAM. 64 gigs of storage. And it's just the nature of things. Honestly, I hate that computer companies even offer a 64 gig option because people see the price tag, oh, it's $649, and they buy it and they quickly realize they can't get everything on there that they want to do and do all the things they want on it just because there's a storage constraint. So I really will be happy today that Apple and Microsoft and even, with the iPads, the Chromebooks and all that, they get rid of that 64 gig version just because there's too many things out there that we use every day, just from even a basic level, where 64 gigs it's just not a viable storage option anymore. Maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe, but in 2020, I would never recommend somebody get a 64 gig anything for storage because you'll just run out of space too quickly, especially if you're on a Windows machine. I mean, like, hell, the Windows itself is like a 20 gig install just to get it on the computer. So if you got 64 gigs and the Windows don't partition things exactly to the 64 gigs, it partitions them and kind of formats them in such a way that you end up with less storage than what's being advertised to you. And then by the time you put on the Windows operating system, you can be down to like 20 gigs, 25 gigs. And you're like, what I'm supposed to do with 25 gigs? I haven't even installed no software on it yet. Exactly. So I would recommend this particular model, the i5 model. If you're talking about this is a great intro level. The other two are more for if you need more gigs of space. Like I said, they're strong for developers and people like video editing and things of that nature on your Chromebook. There are a few apps that you can use for that kind of stuff, especially when you're installing Linux apps and all that kind of thing. Then yeah, you can jump into the higher ones. But for most of your needs here, that's the Pixelbook Go. Now, Pixelbook isn't the only option. That is a more premium Chromebook. You can definitely get Chromebooks as low as a couple $100. But really be cognitive of what you're getting and name brand. Do not buy these off-name brand Chromebooks because you will get what you pay for. If I had to kind of put it, a couple companies that you should be using, of course, Google. If a Google brand Chromebook is awesome. Lenovo, Dell, HP, they make some pretty decent Chromebooks. And if you go to Best Buy right here, you can see you can shop for Chromebooks that's under $200. Like you see here, the Pixelbook is pretty good just here. HP has a nice Chromebook, it's $299. The only problem with this Chromebook is that it's an Intel Celeron processor. I'm not gonna say that's bad, but it's not as powerful as your i5 and your M3 and i5 processors. I would definitely stay in that realm of things. But that 32 gigs, that's even worse than 64. You know what I'm saying? 64 is my baseline. That's if that's your budget. I can only afford that. Then that's 64 gigs. 32 gigs, that's almost a no-go for me. And sadly, they keep selling these things with these 32 gigs of RAM. I mean, not RAM, but storage. I wouldn't buy that. I wouldn't buy a 32 gig anything. I barely want to tell you that to get a 64 gig something, but that at least you can get some stuff on there if you just kind of keep your install base kind of slim. I would definitely go for the 128, but 4 gigs of RAM on a Chromebook is decent. You want 8, but if you can afford 4, that's decent. But like I said, you can get them in the $200 or $300 range. But if you're realistically looking for a Chromebook that's going to last you, you're going to probably be looking at somewhere about $400 and above for a decent Chromebook. The printing situation is sort of the same, like I said, is with the iPad. It is possible, but you have to make sure that your printer has what is known as mobile printing, so that it can print from these, I guess they consider them mobile devices, but you can print from these devices such as your iPad and your Chromebook and things and even your iPhone and Android phone and things of that nature. But so the Chromebook is definitely a good purchase, especially if if you're just doing things that's kind of in the cloud with Google and the Google Suite, or you kind of do things that's in the Android ecosystem because you can install Android apps onto your Chromebook. It is a good alternative to a mainstream laptop like your Windows laptop and your MacBook laptops. If it's your only device, and maybe because some of these Chromebooks come with pens, but I haven't really seen one that I really like that really rivals the iPad. So if you're looking for a tablet that could be a tablet and maybe a computer, definitely go with the iPad. If you're looking for one device that can be more laptop than tablet and you're not really concerned about the pen and writing notes by hand, but doing everything by like a traditional computer, I would say go with a Chromebook, because a Chromebook can do a lot of things as long as the apps that you're looking for are available on the Chromebook. Like I said, a lot of specialty apps for engineering and a lot of these other majors and stuff, you're not going to find them available in the App Store or available in the cloud yet. So you really gotta do some soul searching and kind of write down. A lot of times I tell people that when I advise people and consult people about what they should be buying for their next, computers or even servers or anything like that, I have them write down what is a must-have, what you absolutely must be able to do with this computer, and what applications you absolutely have to run on your computer. Because that tells you right off the bat if an iPad or a Chromebook is even a viable option, or do we need to go right and skip all that and just go right to the Windows machines or even Mac machines. So that's basically my spiel for a Chromebook. If you're going to get one, let's quickly recap. At minimum 4 gigs of RAM space, a minimum of 64 gigs of not space, 4 gigs of RAM, or 4 gigabytes of RAM, a minimum of 64 gigs of storage. I would stay in the Intel line of chipsets, like your Intel M3, i5, and i7, just depending on what you're looking for. The Google Pixelbook is an excellent choice. That's a Ceddy approved device. If you're not gonna get the Pixelbook and you want to do a little shopping around with brands, stick with the major brands: Samsung, Google, HP, Dell, Lenovo. They have Chromebooks that are priced excellent. Try those first before you get an off-brand. Sometimes you see at Walmart these things like that. They just, I don't know who made that. I don't know who made that computer. I wouldn't go with those, because at least with the name brand laptops, for the most part, there's, because they're such a big brand, they continuously roll out rollouts and updates for the machine itself. But no matter what Chromebook you get, it's going to be backed up by Google as far as the operating system. So that's what I would say about Chromebook. They can be used. They're great for students. It can be great for you. My wife's an attorney. She uses it every day for her stuff. I have mine. I use my iPad more, but that's more of a preference thing than a can it do it thing. My Pixelbook Go is an excellent device. Haven't had no problems with it. But that's what I would say about the Chromebooks. Excellent choice. So next we're going to talk about the Windows laptops and what you should be looking for in that type of device. So if you're interested in purchasing a Windows laptop or desktop, that's what we'll be talking about in this portion of the video. Basically, I guess when most people kind of think about buying a new laptop, it's a great chance that they will be picking up a Windows laptop. Windows is the more dominant operating system out there today, so it's more natural that more people will be picking up this particular kind of laptop. So when purchasing a laptop, you really got to think about, what will I be using my computer for? Because, well, that's true of any laptop, but even more so with Windows laptop, because the landscape for Windows and Windows machines is so great and so wide that there's different spectrums of the landscape for Windows and Windows machines of where you can sit. So if you're doing things like word processing, Netflix, social media, that kind of stuff, that requires a much lower resources needed or required than something like developing, data science, engineering, video rendering and editing, and playing video games and games on your laptop or machine. So first thing first, you really got to think about, what do I need my laptop for, and what are my use cases? What will I be using this laptop for? And that kind of dictates a lot of what kind of machine that you end up buying, and the specs and specifications of which you will need for your laptop. So like I said, usually when you buy a laptop today, there's a good chance that it's going to be an Intel processor. A lot of times they say, okay, you can go talk to the Best Buy salesman. He was like, okay, I have this laptop here. It has an Intel processor or AMD processor, and Intel is the more kind of de facto standard right now as of today, but AMD is quickly catching up because of the things that they're doing. But if you get someone trying to sell you an Intel processor, That's fine. You just gotta know what you're looking at and what does that mean. So he says, hey, this has an i3 processor or has an i5 processor or i7 processor. That's just the different classifications that's in the family for the processor. Usually the higher you go up, i3, i5, i7, i9, usually the more things it can do. So, or the more things it can do simultaneously and the more powerful it is to do more things efficiently. So, I will start with the minimal, extremely minimal of i5. Don't really mess with Celeron processors and stuff. When you talk about your Windows laptop, they're just too slow in today's market. I would start with a minimum of i3. If you can afford it, definitely start at an i5. Between an i5 and i7, your i9s that's up here, between these two, those are processors that require a lot more. You have a higher workload, a higher workflow that deals with more intensive processes. That's what these are for. But for your everyday tasks, even with gaming and things like that, between the i5 and the i7 will be plenty for what you're doing. If push comes to shove, you can go down to an i3. You also talk about generations of processors. Right now, currently, as of this recording, the 10th generation, or the Intel 10th generation is currently what's out there, and it's what's being sold in a lot of laptops. So, I always say go with the latest gen that you can get, just because this way you won't be starting out with your new computer a generation behind and things like that. That's just, a lot of times you'll see things like they'll talk about the cores of a processor. They're like, oh, it's this i7 processor with 9 cores or 8 cores or 4 cores and things like that, and you're thinking like, what the heck is a core? And basically, back in the day, they had a core for every processor that was able to focus on a single task. What you want to do now is they're now multi-core processors, meaning they can have multiple cores. In a nutshell, that means that they can do a lot more things in parallel, a lot more efficiently, and a lot faster. So the more cores you have, that just means that you can do a lot more things efficiently, and things like that. So now you don't want to overbuy like this 9 series with 18 cores. You don't need 18 cores to do work on if you're just doing like Office and looking at Netflix. You just don't need that. You can get by with a dual core, even a 4 core. And that's kind of what my rule of thumb. Another rule of thumb is, if you're going to get an Intel processor or any kind of processor, you want to make sure it has at least 4 cores on it. I think they still sell like dual core. I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but usually you'll find them like quad core processors. You want to make sure that it has at least 4 cores on it. That's be the minimum that I think you should get. And of course, if you need higher intensive work, if you're like a data scientist or even doing some particular kinds of coding that requires those things like big data programming, you're building like big data VMs and all that kind of stuff on your machine. Of course, more cores will do more things. You want at least an i5 quad core, i7 quad core. I think that will fit the majority of the people watching this video today, with the exception of a few people who's into like developing, video editing, and that kind of stuff. Which is at that point they probably need another machine that has something called a GPU on it, so they can do graphical work and things like that for like graphic designers, 3D sculptors and modelers, video game designers, people wanting to play video games and render video, that type of stuff. But that's kind of the rule of thumb. So Intel is going to be your de facto standard today. That's a good thing. And the reason why AMD, which I'm about to talk about in a minute, is making such a comeback is because they handle this thing called thermal throttling, at least in my opinion, a lot better. And they're doing a lot of good things with their processors. And AMD is actually serving as a great alternative to Intel. So a lot of people, they got Intel because that's all there was on the market that was any good. Now you got the AMD and their Ryzen series that we're going to talk about in a minute. But basically, computers, that these processors, they will perform at one speed. So you'll see they'll talk about, like, for instance, they say, okay, up to a 5.3 gigahertz with Intel thermal velocity boost and all that kind of stuff. Basically, that's just marketing terminology for basically when you're doing more intensive processing for a short burst of time, it can go all the way to 5.3 gigahertz. It's not going to sustain at that high. It's going to probably run at somewhere like 3, 3 gigahertz, something like that. Just depending on, this is a particular i9 processor. So basically, processors will perform at one speed, just doing this everyday task. If you have a need, if you're doing something for like 2 or 3 seconds or minutes or whatever, and it needs to boost up to a higher speed, it can. A lot of times you see on the processor it says it can go up to this higher speed. That doesn't mean it's going to run at that speed all the time. Just means it's going to go up to that speed and then come back down. And if things get hot in your computer, it will actually thermal down, what's called thermal throttling. It will throttle down to a lower speed. And Intel is notorious for that. That's the reason why a lot of people are looking at these alternatives, because Intel hasn't really addressed that well enough, in my opinion, to continue to call themselves the de facto standard for processors. And the way that you kind of handle this is through your thermal system that's built into the machine. So usually air is used to kind of cool these machines. Your computer will suck in with fans, cooler air. It'll kind of go through your machine, kind of cool things off like a nice breeze, and then push all the hot air out the system through vents and so forth. For desktops, you can use things such as gel cooling and water cooling. But that's more for the desktops, because you really don't get that level of customization. It's just not enough space in the laptop to do all that. So most laptops, utilize air to kind of cool the systems, so that it can maintain at least a constant, one speed, so that it doesn't thermal. Because when it thermals down, or throttles down, I should say, it gets slower. It does get slower. So you want a machine that has a decent base speed. And if it can boost up to a certain speed if it needs to, come back down to the base speed, and then I guess if it gets hot, it kind of throttles down to a lower speed. So, but AMD, in my opinion, does that better than Intel at this point. That's my opinion, of course. And so, a lot of times you're going to see laptops and stuff like that has AMD chips in it now. And don't be afraid of that. Don't think that, if it's not an Intel chip, it must suck. No, that is not the case. I like AMD, and I openly, advocate for them. Like, hey, this is a process that you should seriously take a look at, because they kind of follow the same kind of standards that the Intel does. They call like series. So you get the Ryzen Series 3, the Series 5, the Series 7, just like your i3, i5, i7, i9, and you got your Threadrippers. Your Threadripper is a series of it's a processor that's at a whole nother level. That's for high-end, like, desktop programming. I don't even know they make a laptop with a Threadripper. I'm sure somebody's going to call me out on that, and that's fine, because, I don't really keep up with where all these processors are put in at. I kind of look at things of what I need to, and, yeah, Threadripper is at a whole nother level. Like you see here, it's got 64 cores and 128 processing threads. That just means it can do a lot of things very fast, very efficient, and so forth. So, usually people stay between the i3, i5, and i7, or the 3 series, 5 series, and 7 series of the AMD, and they get by just fine, even with gaming. So that's how powerful these processors are. So, I'm just kind of say, hey, if you see something that says AMD on it, don't be afraid. Give it a good look. So you might get a good sell on it, a good deal with it, and I promise you'll be just as happy with that will be with the Intel, but just as you would if you had an Intel processor. So if we come at the Best Buy, for instance, and kind of look at the PC section of Best Buy, you will see, like, for instance, the Microsoft Surface Laptop 3 15-inch. It is indeed an AMD processor. It's a Series 5 processor. The only reason why I don't like this particular configuration is that it has 128 gigabytes of storage. My rule of thumb is that you need at least 256, because Windows and the way Windows kind of formats things and kind of bring things together as it sets things up for you, is that if you have 128 gigs of storage, by the time it finishes, you might have 120. It's not that it's taking away space, it's just the way it's formatting, partitioning, things to that nature. So then the Windows install itself is like a 20 to 25 gig install. So if I took, I'm just kind of doing round numbers now. So if I took off 8 gig just for the partitioning and setup of your new drive, now you got 120 gigs. Now if I add in, let's just say another 20 gigs for the Windows install, now you add, right about 100 or a little under 100 gigs left. You start at 128. You basically lost 28 gigs just to set up and install. and you haven't installed anything on there and anything like that. Now 128 gigs is not bad if you got a very small install base. If the only thing you're installing is a few programs like Office and the little things that you might need, then it might work out for you with no problem. But a lot of times, over time, you start installing things here and there. Next thing you know, you're quickly out of space at 128 gigs. So that's why I say, minimum, let's do 256 gigs, and at least an 8 gigs of memory, 256 gigs of storage. So in this case, almost for half the price, this HP here is to me a better buy, because while this is using the AMD Ryzen processor, which is good, I have no problem with that part. This is using the Intel i5. So basically, classification-wise, they're about the same. This is the 5 series Ryzen. This is an Intel i5 series Intel Core processor. But this one has 8 gigs of RAM. This one has 12. So you got a little bit more resources there to do more things and kind of handle things more efficiently. And in this case, you only get a measly 128 gigabytes of storage, while you get 256 gigs of storage with this one. So you might be asking yourself, if this is the better buy, why is it literally half the price? With Windows machines, it is just like that. And a lot of times with Windows machines, just like with Apple, you're paying to a certain degree for name recognition and name branding. Just like when you go out there and buy tennis shoes, you can get a shoe that looks almost identical to one another, but if one got a Nike swoosh on it and the other one doesn't, you're going to pay more for that check mark than you would for the one that doesn't. That's just marketing. And this one is a, featured flagship device by Microsoft. And this one is an HP machine. HP builds machines more for the general audience and more people in general, whereas Microsoft is like, hey, this is a Microsoft machine. So you're paying for name recognition to a certain degree. But in my case, I had to choose between these two. I'll go with this one. Both of them got very similar ratings and so forth. And look at the ratings. The ratings is a good indication of what other issues that might be with the laptop, even with the specs that you have. Like I said, every machine is not built the same. So you can have one machine that has thermal issues, while the other machine from another company with the same specs will have no thermal issues, and that'll be the better rated machine. So look at the ratings and kind of stick to the rule of thumbs I'm giving you, and you'll pick up a pretty good, awesome machine. Always, I say not always, but try to stay with the name brand machines. And it's not because of name loyalty. It's just because these hardware makers, their reputation is at stake. So they can't really afford to keep sending out bad machines compared to a company that nobody knows about. And it's just they tend to support their machines better. So the Microsoft machines, the HP, the Dells, the Lenovo's, even Samsung, to a certain degree, you want to kind of stay with those machines. Just because I feel that you get better support from those companies, because their name is on the line with these machines. So I'll say stick with those, and I think you'll be good. So so to recap, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of space. Make sure it's SSD space, which means the solid state drive, so that's a faster drive than your old school drives. And try to stay with like the name brands from major companies if you can: HP, Microsoft, Lenovo, Dell, things like that. I just think that you'll get better support from those machines, from those companies, than you would from some off name that's overseas that nobody really heard of. You know what I'm saying? Because it's gonna be hard to kind of contact their support and all that kind of stuff. And all that comes into play if you're not really a computer technical savvy person and can repair your own machines. You really want something that you can kind of pick up a phone and say, hey, what's going on? That goes a long way, and usually with these big companies you can do that with. So in the next section of this video, we're going to talk about Windows machines again, but for gaming. And the reason why is because when you're talking about Windows machines and gaming, you will most likely be talking about the Windows machines, because Apple is just not equipped to be your gaming rig. It's just not. Apple is, you don't buy an Apple for gaming. You just don't. I don't care what Apple tries to sell you through their advertising and media. No. Now, to me, an iPad is more gaming centric than a doggone MacBook. And it's that, it's just the way they build their machines. Now, their later series of laptops does a lot better job with that. But a lot of times it's not even that. It's the gaming companies that's building these games they know that Mac has never been really a strong gaming computer, so they don't even build their games for them. They build them strictly for Windows systems and things like that. So while you're like the new MacBook Pro 16-inch, it's got some decent specs on it and can play games. But like, I'm a big Overwatch person. You can't play that on there. You have to do something like boot camp or something like that to kind of get on there. But natively, it's just not supported. So we're gonna talk about gaming in the next section, and kind of continue on with this Windows laptop thing and things that you should be cognitive of, and kind of things that you should consider when picking up your next Windows laptop. So when you think about a gaming laptop or a laptop or desktop that is going to be used for video recording or video editing and things of that nature, or playing games, especially these AAA titles such as like Overwatch or Modern Warfare and things like that, those kind of computers sits kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum that would be considered from your normal everyday computers. And in a sense, and it's not like it's sitting on a spectrum because it's so totally different. It's just that there's going to be more resources required for that type of machine. So where I said my rule of thumb was for a basic system, you want like 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigabytes of space, and like a i3, i5 processor. If you're looking more for a gaming machine or a machine for video editing and things of that nature, you can want a machine that's kind of higher in specs. So i5 would do. I still hold true with the i5, but I would prefer an i7 for those type of machines. About 16 gigs of RAM starting. That usually is a good starting point for those type of machines. For your hard drive space, where I said before was 256 gigs, you definitely want way more storage in there because being able to hold video files and being able to kind of install different types of games, it takes a lot more storage though to kind of install those type of programs and files and things of that such. So at minimal, I would say a 512 gigabyte storage SSD for your machine, but you probably realistically want to go with something like a 1 terabyte SSD for that. So that type of machine is kind of where you want to see things at for your more gaming type PCs and so forth, laptops. But you also want a machine that has what's called a discrete video card on it. So your normal type of laptops and stuff that you'll buy normally has what is called an integrated graphics card, and that's just a graphics card that's kind of built onto the motherboard of the device. And it's usually, it's weaker in nature because you're not doing a bunch of stuff that requires all this graphical processing power anyways. You're doing like word processing, videos, watching videos and streaming videos and playing music and stuff like that. Whereas when you're now doing video edits and playing games, you're definitely you're gonna require a lot more video processing. And that video card or that video processing unit, which is also short for GPU, is really just as important as your CPU, because while your CPU is being used for all the other processes of the computer, the GPU is being used and is the focus for your graphical ability. Because you can have the best laptop, the best desktop in the world, but if you're just running a simple integrated graphic card on it and you try to play like some of these higher end title games and things like that, you're gonna find out that your computer is gonna run extremely slow, and you're gonna be like, I got this great processor and all this RAM and this nice hard drive, this nice SSD. What's the problem? It's because while the computer can handle the load, the GPU is what handles the graphical part of it. So there's a lot of different GPUs out there, and that in itself is a whole nother conversation about which GPU to use. There's all kind of things from NVIDIA like Titans and all that kind of stuff. But what you're gonna probably see a lot of the market now is called a GeForce RTX card. And they actually have these on both desktops and laptops, and that's why I'm kind of today going to talk about an RTX card. And this is the one I'm kind of running in my particular Windows laptop that I use for not just development but also gaming. And this one is like RTX 2060, and you're gonna hear all these things. You're gonna hear like RTX and some number. You know, I'm using a 2060. They have one. I think there's a couple one that's a couple generations older that work just as well. But you definitely want something in this architecture or this type of graphics card because they are viable cards. They're built for. They both have like the standard desktop version that you're seeing this one here, as well as some that can go into a laptop. And basically, just what it is that it's just your video card. It's a separate component of your laptop that is only used, not only used, but as basically its primary job is to handle the graphics, the video, and the ability like for 3D graphics and stuff to be able to render it on screen quickly so that you can enjoy like games and stuff like that. So the RTX, like Battlefield and all that kind of stuff. A lot of these graphic cards are measured in how many frames per second or FPS can it generate for you when playing this game. So, anything that's kind of above about 60 to 80 is pretty good. Some of these games can push well over 100 FPS a second, which is excellent. And that's just the more frames a second that it can refresh and put on screen, the more the game doesn't seem to lag. It has a fast response rate and sort of like that. Another component to that is you also want a laptop that goes along with your video card. You want a laptop that has a display that has a high refresh rate. So like there you get refresh rates at like 60 hertz, where it can kind of that's about standard today, which is decent. And then some of these are like 120, 140, and even higher that you're seeing on these laptops and so forth. And basically that helps with the FPS or the frames per second to kind of refresh things on the screen fast enough that your eye cannot pick up the individual frames that's being presented to you and so forth. So NVIDIA is probably one of the major graphic card companies out there that builds graphic cards for laptops and desktops and so forth. So if you're building a desktop, I really would shop around for various NVIDIA video cards to see which one that you can pick up. They range in price, so I'm not going to get into pricing because the price is so drastically all over the place. It really kind of gets down into what you're looking for and what you can afford. Like I said, I'm running with a GeForce RTX 2060 on my particular laptop. And the laptop that I'm going to recommend that a lot of people look at is called the Asus ROG or ROG. I hear some people call ROG, some people say ROG, which stands for Republic of Gamers Zephyrus G14. And why this particular laptop stands out to me and why I actually picked it up and I'm currently using it for the things that I do, especially on the Windows side of the house, is because laptops, gaming laptops in particular, are notorious for being huge. These huge mammoth laptops that's like 8 pounds and so forth, and like 17, 19 inches screens and all that. And because it requires a lot of power to kind of run these games on your laptop. And Asus did an excellent job with shrinking that down to make it very portable into a 14-inch screen. This thing is literally about the size of my MacBook, you know what I'm saying? And it's running Windows 10. It has a RTX 2060 on it. It has a very nice display for gaming. So it's called the ROG Zephyrus G14. And as you can see here on the screen, this laptop is a beast. It is a beast. And, it's GeForce RTX. A lot of people have kind of reviewed this laptop and with great, admiration for it, for what it's doing. It's a marvel in itself because, like I said, gaming laptops in general have just been these mammoth computers that's not very, they're portable because they're laptops, but they're not portable because they're 19-inch screens with these huge battery packs. I mean, not battery pack, power chargers and stuff. That because it requires so much power, they got these huge power bricks that goes along with it. The Zephyrus is a 14-inch awesome machine that has, like as you can see here, it's a 8-core Ryzen 9 4900HS. That's just the classification CPU, kind of like we had in our other portion of the video. We talked about CPUs. So it is the AMD processor, which is why I love AMD now, because of this machine in particular. It's shown me what AMD can do now with its thermals, and teaming up with NVIDIA to kind of get us all working perfectly together. Well, not perfectly, but nothing's perfect when you talk about computers, but in an awesome way. It comes with Windows. It has this RTX 2060. This is a powerhouse of a laptop that's in a very small form factor, so it's very portable, but yet you can take it with you and use it for gaming, video editing, development, stuff like that. I will say that it can charge. It has two ways of charging. It comes with a a power brick that you kind of plug in through the barrel connector to just kind of power it. And then when you're gaming, that's going to be the power supply that you want to use while gaming. But it can also power through a USB-C charger. So if you got like a USB-C charger, hanging around, or that's what you kind of carry with you, and you're not gaming, for instance, or you're not, doing that level of gaming, you can actually use that as well to charge your laptop and so forth, and that'll work awesome. But this machine is a great pickup if you can, get one at Best Buy or something. And I'm just kind of showing you right here where, at Best Buy is you usually can find it about $14.49. Apparently this week again it's $50 off, so you can get it for $13.99.99, $1,400. This is a great machine. As you can see, it's got a 4.5 out of 5 here. And this is literally the laptop that I use for, like I said, for development as well as gaming. So as you can see now, I'm bringing up Overwatch. Overwatch is one of my favorite games. And as you kind of watch this video play, you would notice that from this machine, I'm not doing anything. I'm not plugged into no external GPU. I'm not doing anything special. I am running it just like you would run any game, keyboard and mouse. And as you can see that my but the frame rate right now, I'm getting a steady over 100 FPS, over 100 frames per second, being rendered and presented to me as I play this game. So this machine, as you can see, this machine is a powerhouse game. I mean, not game, but machine that can easily handle things such as Overwatch, Raid of the Tomb Raider, the new Modern Warfare Warzone, Fortnite. I play all those games, League of Legends. I play all those games on here with zero problem, getting high frame rates from the 80s to 100 plus, and things of that nature. So if you're looking for a solid gaming laptop, definitely consider the Asus ROG Zephyr G14. It is a very portable gaming powerhouse that has a lot to offer, and is reasonably priced. Gaming laptops are going to be kind of more expensive than your non-gaming laptops, so to speak. But now the only thing that has suffered, I guess, I'm saying all these things as all these pros. What's the cons? Well, the cons is with any gaming laptop, there's going to be basically a hit in battery life. So that's why I always say, if you're going to carry this thing and kind of take it with you here and there in your bag or something, carry the battery pack with you, because you want to plug in before you start gaming so it can give it the laptop more power to run your games. Because if you game without the power supply and the laptop is running on battery mode alone, this is true of any gaming laptop. This is not just for this particular machine. You're only going to get maybe an hour, 2 at the most, when you're gaming, because it's such an intensive process. It will quickly eat up battery life, and that's true of any gaming laptop. I don't care which one you buy. If you're playing games unplugged from the power, you're gonna eat up that battery life. So keep that in mind when you're talking about gaming laptops. Video editing the same way. It's less stressful than gaming, but rendering graphics to videos is a process intensive task. So anything that's process intensive is going to wear and tear and eat at the battery faster than when you're doing just regular other things like surfing the web and things like that. But definitely the Asus ROG G14. You've seen what it can do in this video. It's a Ceddy approved laptop. But basically, if you're looking for this type of laptop, like I said, you want to kind of go with 16 gigs of RAM minimum, 512 to 1 terabyte of SSD storage, an Intel i5 at the minimum. You probably want to try to go more towards an i7 and higher, depending on what you're trying to do with your laptop than just gaming and stuff like that. But definitely between an i5 and i7, and you need something with a dedicated graphics card built in. You can't rely on the integrated graphics card that comes with the laptop. It's just not enough power there. So you're gonna have to have something that's on top of that, and that's why I said like the RTX 2060, the Zephyrus, this particular laptop I was talking about, the Zephyrus G14, that has a RTX 2060 as well. So basically that's what I have to say about gaming laptops. It's not, just one of those things where you can get a nice laptop that has a graphics card in it, and there's more to it. Of course, if you're building machines, you want to build a machine for gaming. That's probably the best way to go. Honestly, if you're looking for a gaming machine, you definitely probably want to go desktop compared to laptop, because laptops are just, even though they're mobile, you can only do so much with the laptop. But I get it, you want something that's all in one. But if you're talking about, what's the best choice, laptop or desktop for gaming, definitely go desktop. It just gives you more customization over your system overall to allow you to do more things with your gaming rig. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about the last piece of this video, which is the MacBooks and the Apple products for your next purchase of a laptop, should you get a Mac and a MacBook and things like that. So I always get the question asked to me, should I get a Windows machine or should I get a Apple machine? And my answer to them is, it just depends on what you're looking for. I know a lot of developers, for example, tend to purchase Apple machines, including myself. The machine I'm on doing this video is actually a MacBook Pro. And the reason why a lot of developers, for instance, in that use case, tend to purchase Apple machines is because we are used to things such as terminal and developing in like Linux type environments. So the Apple, the Mac OS itself is kind of more aligned with that kind of type of operating system. So it just seemed like second nature for us to kind of develop on a MacBook or some kind of Linux like laptop or VM or something like that compared to a Windows machine. But there's nothing wrong with Windows and all that kind of stuff. I actually got a video where I kind of walk the viewer through setting up a Windows machine to be able to do all kind of development, for open source software and things like that. So but there's different cases. I know a lot of graphic designers use Mac computers more so than Windows machines because of the software that's out there for Apple and just MacBooks and iMacs and so forth. One of those softwares being what is called Sketch app. It's a kind of a vector-based tool that you can develop mock-ups and just graphics in and so forth. And I know a lot of designers like that kind of thing. So they use, and that's only available on Mac. So if you are in love with a Mac and you want to get a Mac laptop, this is the section for you. And I will say right off the bat, let's just get out the way, Macs are way more expensive than your Windows computers. Apple is not the philosophy of trying to spec out their laptops, because Apple has the ability to build both the hardware and the software for their laptop. They're not in the business of, we got to have the latest and greatest specs on our machines to lure people in. If people who like Apple, they're going to like Apple and they'll continue to buy it because they like it. So but Apple has been doing a good job lately, I feel, that of kind of keeping up with the industry. Like right now, most of their line has the 10th generation Intel processor and things of that nature. Should you buy Apple computer today? And the reason why I kind of say that compared to the rest of the machines is because Apple is in the process of transitioning away from Intel processors. So just like your Windows laptops, Mac also uses, as of today, Intel processors for their Macs, for their MacBook and their iMacs and things like that, such as i5 and i7 and all that kind of stuff. But Apple, I don't know if they just kind of got fed up with Intel and some of the throttling issues that's been going on with them and different things of that nature. But Apple has said, you know what, we're done with Intel. We're gonna start making our own chips, chips that are on silicon. Basically, they're gonna build their own ARM processors, and we'll have another video to talk about that as more information becomes available, what that means for Apple. But we should start hearing news about that very soon, because the first Apple laptop, I believe, if rumors are correct, it's supposed to be the reintroduction of the 12-inch MacBook with the new new ARM silicon that Apple has specifically made for their lineup. Should be announced within a week or two, because they're supposed to have this laptop out by the end of the year, at least the first one anyways. And over the next course of the next 2 years, I believe 2 or 3 years, their goal is to transition completely away from Intel over to their own chipset. So the reason why I asked, should you buy one right now, is because with the transition, eventually the current MacBook will no longer be even in Apple's lineup. But Apple has already said they will continue to support these MacBooks and iMacs and so forth for the for the warranty periods and all that kind of stuff for like 2 or 3 years out. So if you need a laptop today, if you need a MacBook today, I say go ahead and get one. You should be safe for the next 2 or 3 years, even beyond that. The other problem that kind of presents itself with this transition away from Intel with Apple is because Apple's transition away from the traditional Intel chipset for their own, things such as running Windows on your Mac machine would no longer be possible. So if you, like me, like to have your Windows machine, like a VM or even Boot Camp, stood up so that you can run both Windows and a Mac environment, as of right now, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, because it's just going to be its own silicon, its own ARM processor. You're not going to be able to run Windows on it, at least as of today. Apple might surprise us with something cool. We'll just have to kind of see as more information kind of is presented to us for that. But if you still need to run Windows on your device, then you might want to go ahead and pick up an Intel MacBook now, or Intel iMac, whatever now, before they start being pulled from the market in place of this new chip that Apple's presenting. But that's another conversation, another video. We're talking about the Intel Macs that's here today. So if you go to the Macs, Apple, they have a wide spectrum again of devices. So they have the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro 13, the MacBook Pro 16, the iMacs for desktop, the iMac Pro, and then the Mac Pro, which is this beast of a machine. Then they even have the Mac Minis and so forth. So the first thing you need to do is say, okay, do I want a MacBook, a laptop, or do I want a desktop? If you want a laptop, how powerful do I need this laptop to be? What kind of stuff am I doing? Just kind of like, like what I said with the Windows things, am I doing just things like, Word documents, YouTube, things, Facebook, social media, things of that nature, that doesn't require a lot of power, then maybe I can start looking at that MacBook Air. If I'm doing college work and things of that nature, again, maybe I can look at the MacBook Air. If I need to do things that's a little bit more powerful, if I'm a graphic designer and need more, a little bit more resources, maybe I can look at the MacBook Pro 13 for more portability, or even the MacBook Pro 16, which is still portable, but it gives you even more power. If I'm needing a desktop, same kind of concept. There's different sizes and configurations for the iMac. How much power do I need? Do I need an iMac? Do I need an iMac Pro? A Mac Pro? Things like that. So let's kind of start with the MacBook Air. If we come to the MacBook Air, this is kind of your introduction line of the Mac laptops. This machine is very good, actually, and this was recently updated, which even gave it even more kind of meat and girth to the actual MacBook. So starting that, at $999. It's basically $1,000 buy-in to get into this laptop. But for $999, you get a lot of stuff. You get, like I said, this 1.1 gigahertz dual core. Remember I talked about the dual core? That $999 price point, you'll get a dual core processor and an i3. It's a dual core i3 Intel i3 processor. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It can turbo boost up to 3.2 gigahertz. That means, like, it's like 1.1 for most things. It will, if need be, it can jump to 3.2. If it starts to get overheated a lot, then it can kind of drop down even lower to kind of, cool things off and so forth. Like we've been talking about that thermal throttling and stuff. But it can be configured to a quad core i5 and so forth. So, at this point, I think that has a 256 at the $999 price point. Yeah, it's a 256 SSD. It comes with 8 gigs of RAM. That's configurable up to 16 gigs. You can pay more money and add more gigs and more space. If you want a 512 gigabyte storage for more space, or 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte, you will pay. You have to pay dearly. It's not cheap, but you could pay for that. That kind of upgrade. If you're gonna get a MacBook Air, I always tell people, pay a little extra, pay an extra $300, and get the $1299 version. Because with that $1299 version, you get a quad core. I was saying earlier about the my rule of thumb: try to get a quad core Intel processor, an i5 if you can. This comes with an i5, 8 gigs of RAM. It comes with 8 gigs of RAM that's upgradable to 16. It comes with a 512 gig SSD, and that you can get it added up to a terabyte or 2 terabytes if need be. And things of that nature. It's a very lightweight device. I think it's under 3 pounds, so it's very, very light. It's basically your introduction MacBook. These are good for students. If you're trying to get a MacBook for your student, your child, or even yourself, and that's very portable, this is kind of where you want to be at. You want a MacBook Air. If you're saying, I like that, but I need a little bit more power, that's where I was at, because I do a lot of things with virtual machines and development and things like that. I don't really game on this machine because, like I said, Apple is not really a gaming laptop. So what I ended up going with was a MacBook Pro 13. I actually got a 16 as well, but that's more for the house. That's on my desk. But what I carry with me is a MacBook Pro 16, and again, it's a 10th generation Intel processor that's configured all the way up to 32 gigs of RAM. That's what I actually have on this particular machine here. I'm gonna show you the specs on here. So they kind of range. It starts like $12.99, $14.99, $17.99, $19.99 for the base configurations, and as you start adding new stuff to it, it quickly jumps in price. Like I think with mine's all configured, I think I was close to $3,000 for this particular machine. We can look at the pricing in a second. But as you can see here, they start out at 256 gigs of space, 512. Then in the higher configurations with the the 2 gigahertz quad core, they both got quad. Anything that's MacBook Pro right now has a quad core. That means at least 4 cores on it. And it is configurable up to 32 gigs of RAM, and up to 4 terabytes of space. This particular one that I'm on right now is a 2 terabyte hard drive. It starts at 16. On the lower configuration, 8 gigs still. On the higher configuration like this one, 16 gigs. The memory's pretty fast, and all with the 32 gigs like I have here. This is when I talk about the integrated graphics here. These are just integrated graphics. They're not bad, but you're definitely not going to get the speed that you saw on the Windows machines with a discrete video card. Apple is just not there. Now, you can plug this into a eGPU, which is an external GPU, but that's like another conversation that we have at another time. But basically, it's a graphics card that sits outside your laptop that you can plug in with a USB-C cable, and all your graphical tasks that's going on will be ran through that eGPU and then back to your system so that you can get higher frame rates, FPS, and things like that. I have one. It's called the Razer Core X, if you ever just want to kind of look it up. And then you can add your own graphics card and stuff like that to it. And that's basically how a lot of the MacBook users have been adding graphics card to their laptops is using the external GPU. But it has like charging. Everything on here is now USB-C. So this is a very more modern type. Apple's very forward thinking when it comes to that kind of stuff. So they're going to give you all like USB-C, that's Thunderbolt 3, so that you can use things such as eGPUs and things like that. But like I said, Macs are expensive. They're not. If you are trying to get a computer on a budget, and you got like a but when I said but, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I'm just saying, hey, I only got this much money to purchase a laptop, and you're not hitting at least, and you need a machine that's got some girth and some power to it, and you only got like $1,000 to spend. You're about to be better served with a Windows machine. Not because this Windows is bad, it's because they have way more variety of machines you can choose from at different price points. Whereas with Apple, they control everything, so you're gonna pay for that. And to kind of prove that, we can come here and look at the machine that I have, for instance. And so I got a 13-inch iPad Pro. Like I said, these are different variations of the different configurations. Like I said, the good thing is at least the base configuration starts at 256 and 8 gigs of RAM for storage and RAM. So even if you get the base unit, it's pretty good. But you're looking at a minimum of $1,299, $1,300 here. Whereas I think the one I have is this one right here. I have this one and it's right off the bat is $2,000. Right off the bat is $2,000. And then if I select this one here and we start to look at the configurations on here, my model has the upgraded processor. So instead of 2.0 gigahertz or 2 gigahertz is a 2.3 gigahertz quad core 10th generation Intel i7. I went up to 32 gigs of RAM for this particular laptop and 2 terabytes of space. As you can see, you're at $3,000. And that's before tax and stuff like that. So you're gonna pay for your MacBook Pros. You're gonna spend some money on that. That's just the thing. People call it Apple tax. That's just the truth of it. Apples are more expensive. Are they better machines than Windows machines? No, they're not. Like I said, people get Apple machines for different reasons, whether it's because of the operating system, that's what they know, that's what they're used to, or for development. In my case, I like the development environment. That's on Mac OS. The 16-inch MacBook Pro is basically the same story, except for with the 16 inches, you're now getting a dedicated video card. That GPU we was talking about earlier, you get dedicated video cards, which are really good. These graphic cards are actually very excellent for what it used to be. Before, no matter what you got, Apple just sucked when it came to graphics and stuff like this. These video cards, even in your base configuration, that AMD Radeon Pro 5300M, that's a decent card. You can definitely play, well, you used to better play Fortnite until this whole fiasco with Apple and Epic, but you can definitely play some games on there. But the problem with the gaming still, so a lot of people are like, well, I can't game on a MacBook. Technically, you probably could game on a MacBook. The problem is that a lot of the games that you might want to play isn't even available on the MacBook because everybody kind of knows that Apple is not a gaming setup. A lot of companies just do not, they just don't build for and compile their code for the MacBooks because it is a different programming language and so forth compared to the Windows and C# and the .NET Core and all that kind of stuff. With Apple, if you want to build software for the Apple platform and kind of build games and stuff like that, there are things like Unity, like the Unity engine that can build it. You kind of build it once and deploy it to multiple places. But a lot of times you have to code in what is called Swift and Objective-C. More Swift, not an Objective-C, but still, it is a different programming language that you got to kind of keep code base up with both. Most companies that's building games, and if they were going to deploy to a Apple machine, they will use a gaming engine such as Unity and stuff like that to kind of build their game. This way they can deploy to multiple platforms, Windows, Mac, and so forth. But a lot of companies don't even deal with Mac because it's a lot of red tape that you got to kind of go through to deploy to Mac. I'm not saying that as a dig, or I love Mac, but they are more difficult to kind of get into their playground than Windows is. So that's just the kind of, the thing of it. When it comes to video editing, people that's wondering about video editing, if you're gonna get a machine for video editing, you definitely want to, if possible, go with the 16-inch MacBook Pro, because of that discrete video card. That will help you a long ways. I do it still, and I'm using the 13-inch, version, because a lot of times I'll just plug into my Razer Core X, which is my eGPU, to handle some of that graphical ability. But the onboard video card is decent enough to do some video editing. So if I'm on a road and need to do some editing for video on my MacBook Pro 13, I can do it. I just might have to wait a little longer to render out the video and things like that. But if you're serious about that kind of work, you definitely probably want to go with the 16. The base model is a great place to start. You can go with this base model all day, thumbs up. But you definitely want to go with that. For video editing software on the Mac, Apple makes a great program called Final Cut Pro. I'm learning that now. I'm kind of learning the Final Cut Pro. That works well. There's other applications out there. You can get Adobe Premiere, After Effects for that kind of stuff. I don't really like that. I don't really know it, so I'm biased. Fight me. You know what I'm saying? But there's also DaVinci Resolve and things to that nature. But I'm liking Final Cut Pro. It works well with the configurations of the Apple machines and so forth. And it runs on this, I think it's optimized with a thing called Metal, which is a graphical library that Apple has come up with that's for their device, such as the iPad and the MacBook and so forth. So it really works well together with the Apple products and so forth. So now if you're looking for a desktop, you can kind of go with the iMac series, and just like I said, the same kind of concepts, all that kind of stuff applies with the iMacs as they do with the MacBooks. Depend on how much RAM and stuff you want. The more RAM you have, and things that you can just do more things with it. When it comes to iMac, it's about how large you want the screen particular. Like on your lower end ones, you got the 21.5 inch. That's pretty good, for iMac, and you can get them in different, dual core. I would rather, like I said, again, if you're gonna get this and you're serious about it, I'll at least look at the quad core. You get more stuff in it. I would probably go with something like this, the quad core. This has got 6 cores in it. It's an i5. I believe they all kind of come with 8 gigs out the gate. Yeah, out the gate, they all come with 8 gigs out the gate. That's configurable again up to 32 gigs. 256 gig hard drive, SSD. It does have the a more discrete video card, except for the low end one. This right here, the Intel Iris. That is just a integrated graphics card. So we talked about the integrated graphics card versus the discrete graphics card. But as you kind of go up you pay more, but as you kind of go up the ladder of, what these things can do, you start getting these discrete graphics cards that can do a lot more graphically, and stuff like that. So you got the 21.5 inch, and then you have the one I have. It's a 27 inch. It's called a 5K display, and it works awesome. I got the last generation. I didn't upgrade to this generation. Yeah, because I know that the ARM processors is coming. So I have my Intel iMac that should suit me fine until I can pull the trigger, or until I pull the trigger for the new ARM processors that Apple is coming up with. But again, I can upgrade. And this one, and like I said, this one is the same thing. It comes with, this is 8 core. It comes with 8 gigs out the box. You can configure it up to 128 gigs of RAM. The cool thing about this particular one is that on the back of it, you can actually, it's a little RAM drawer. That's where your memory goes at. You can actually upgrade the memory yourself for a lot cheaper than what Apple sells it for you because I have 128 gigs of RAM on my iMac that I did myself. And for instance, if we come here, for instance, and I think I paid $6.99 for my RAM kit for 128 gigs, and I can show you which one I have, or which one is the equivalent to. I think, yes, this latest one right here. So we select this one, and just go down to the RAM, for instance. You can see just to get another 128 gigs of RAM, and I got the same thing right here. This is exactly what I have. I paid, I believe it was $699 or $799. You know, yeah, no, it wasn't 800. I mean, it wasn't really past 8. I think it was, I want to say $699 because I paid a little bit for shipping, and I don't. Yeah, it's like I want to say $699 or $799. You know, saying $700, $800. It wasn't $2,600 though. And this is completely, you can configure this yourself. You don't even got to be a computer expert. It's simple as pie. You just really pop off the drawer, you know, lift the little drawer up, pull out the old ones, put the new ones in, close it back down. It's a 3 or 4 minute job. And Apple's charging you $2,600 for that upgrade feature that you can get. You can go to Otherworld Computing, OWC, and buy that same 128 gig RAM kit yourself and do it yourself for less than $800. So yeah, but these are your desktop, you know, computers and so forth. So if you're looking for a desktop, this is a good idea. It also plugs into your if you didn't get one with the discrete video card, but you still want to be able to do graphical stuff on there, you can always go with the eGPU. Like I said, I own the Razer Core X with a video card in it that you can just plug into. A word of caution about that: make sure the video card that you put into the eGPU is compatible with the Mac. Not all video cards are compatible with the Mac. In particular, NVIDIA, I know there's some workarounds and stuff like that, isn't really a good fit for eGPUs and Macs. You want to kind of stay with the AMD chips, or the not AMD chip, the AMD graphics card for your Razer Core X and so forth. They tend to work better. So, you know, so basically, yeah, you can get a MacBook, you can get an Apple product. I'm not gonna say that the Apple products are necessarily better than the Windows products. It really comes down to a preference and why, you know, some people have invested heavily into like software and things of that nature for Apple, and like myself. So that's the reason why I kind of keep going back to Apple. Plus, I like the way their operating system operates, along with their development environment. It's all kind of nicely integrated together, and things like that. There's also the MacBook Mini. It's just another desktop, you know, computer without the monitor. So you have to supply your own monitor and stuff, and keyboard and mouse. But the same concepts apply. You can kind of get in different configurations. But basically, rule of thumb, as always, if you're going to get one, make sure that you have at least four cores, no, quad-core processor. Intel, try to stay with the i5 if possible and higher. 256 gigs of SSD storage. And you know, if you stay with that and kind of you know, spec out as you want to go up there, if you need higher configuration, then buy that. The only con that I say, well, to all this, unlike some of your Windows machines where you kind of upgrade things yourself, usually with a few exceptions here and there, with the Apple products, like that, especially with the MacBook size and the MacBooks and stuff, those are completely non-upgradable. So what you buy on day one is what you're gonna have to buy, what you will have to deal with on day whatever until you buy your next MacBook and so forth. So plan accordingly. I can't stress that enough. You know, we know that Apple's expensive. It's sometimes a little better to, if you know, save up a little bit more money to get the model that you need, than to kind of say, okay, I'm just going to get the cheaper one because that's what I have now, and realize that you can't use it for the things that you want. You know, they're great machines though. I love them a lot. It's probably one of my favorite desktop and laptop computers. Even though I can't game with it, it's still the one that I use for most of my productivity work between my MacBook and my iPad. They just have a great ecosystem of services and applications that all work seamlessly together, and that's why I like them, and that's why I recommend it. But yeah, that's basically what I can say about that. Of course, if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments and so forth. But I'm not gonna say, like I said, I'm not gonna say one is better than the other, but it really is a preference thing. And are you willing to pay that Apple tax to have the Apple device? So thank you for watching this video. I truly do hope that you enjoyed it. I do know that the video was kind of long, but the goal of this video was to give the viewer, yourself, some real material that you can use to kind of help you determine what your next computer or laptop should be, and just in general what's out there and how you should approach, you know, purchasing that next computer of yours. So again, thank you. If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing to my channel. liking the video, and hit that bell icon so you know when I'm upload new content to the channel. Again, thank you. And as always, until the next one, stay geeky, stay techie. Ceddy out.